My name is Dr. Joe Stallman. I am the director of THIPO. THIPO stands for Tribal Historic Preservation. This is a department within Seneca Nation. Seneca Nation is a sovereign indigenous community within the boundaries of New York State. The Cultural Center is actually a new thing for Seneca Nation. It came into being in 2018. However, inside this facility is the museum, and so the museum is really well known, has the Seneca Iroquois National Museum, and that came into being in 1977. And I'm probably one of the newer members around here. And by coming in here, this nation was really gracious and they opened the doors, but coming here and working with everyone, it's family, it's core community that's really held it together for so long. The mission of the organization is to promote Seneca culture and arts. And so the Seneca call the Onondaga, that's their preferred name. Onondaga people have been here since time immemorial. It's in their creation stories. You'll see some of it throughout the museum. Places like New York, a lot of people don't realize that there are thousands and thousands of indigenous peoples within the state boundaries. There's probably about 150,000. When I celebrate Seneca culture or Onondaga culture, I get to celebrate Tuscarora culture, Cayuga culture, Shinnecock culture, and New York needs to know that there are Aboriginal peoples within its boundaries who have always been here. That at some point, thousands of years ago, I had an ancestor, or we had ancestors who said, hey, someone's not being treated right here, and so we need a system of organization that allows everyone to have a voice. And so within our community, everyone had a name, they had a voice, and so they had a place. And no one was useless, everyone had a home. And that's amazing, right? Because right now, America professes to have such a thing, and here we are building on basic building blocks that my ancestors had in place for thousands of years. I'm very critical of how people talk about us, how people address our histories, how people have erased us through their words. And so I'm very critical about this, and I get to look at reports. I get to look at reports generated by companies, by states, by the feds, and there's all of these histories and these different views of the landscape, and I get a voice in that, and I get to correct people, and I get to make, I'm able to go into conversations and change people's minds about how they think about us. There's a lot of people who want their voices heard. There's a lot of people looking for ways to make change, and how do we do it in a positive way, right? And that's the thing I loved about this job so much, and that I continue to love about my job. And so we need organizations like this to meet regularly, to plan, to pass around ideas, because we have to talk at this point. We have to talk amongst each other. We have to get communication out of the museum into the homes. And so I'm really concerned about the young, and we have to find ways to encourage them to have an interest in where they live. And it doesn't matter their color, their creed, where their parents are from. If you're here, you belong here, right? You're here for a reason, so belong here and figure it out. Take pride in where you live and have a little bit of interest, But how do we do that with young people? And I guess it really has to start at a very young age, and sometimes that's before museums, right? And that comes from moms and dads and grandmas and grandpas. And so as we get older and we carry on and move through life, we have to pass this on to our kids. It really begins with us. Museums are just one outlet, and I really find museums problematic, and that's why I don't like going to museums. Especially ones not run by people of our communities, right? Because that story is always slanted. It's always from another worldview. It's never from our worldview. And so if we're not critical with our kids and to teach them to be critical, guess what? When they walk into these places to learn, what are they learning? We had COVID, we had a global pandemic. And I think that really was one of the things that really forced me and Mr. Hayden Haynes. Mr. Hayden Haynes is the director of the museum. He was made director this summer, but prior to that, he was the museum manager under me. And during the pandemic, we were the only 2 people on property. And so we were running a store. Like, that store stayed open. That store was our lifeline to the outside world, just like social media was. And then, you know, we started to bring in some of the furloughed employees, and we started to do in-house exhibits. And so we started to rebuild as a team. But there were a number of complexities, but it's really that experience that really humbled me, because it realized we were all starting off on the same foot as every institution again. But that's really where I fell in love with the idea of community. And within community, I do see the individuals, but I realized the power of community in getting something done. And so when I stepped away this past fall, I saw how the community was coming back. And I didn't really fear for the future of it anymore. I was really excited for where it's going to go. When I found Museum Hue, or they found me, I found a whole bunch more people who really care about the place where they live. And so, you know, by following some of the organizations on the map, or just listening to people on the Zoom calls, I have started to check out different organizations around the state and region that I wouldn't have. And the more that I check out, the more that I realize there's a lot of beautiful culture and communities across the state, and that's really what I want